Well, hello and welcome, folks. My name is Christian Sadler. I'm calling out of Oakley, Utah, and this is your Renatus Founders webinar. We're going to go ahead and get this webinar started at the top of the hour. So in the meantime, I want to announce some of you that have joined us on the line and congratulate you for being here. And let's start right into that with Jeff Massey, Anthony Brown, Kalei Tuilili, Jerry Ruffin, Christopher Kuntz, Ebony Terry, Kiowa Lewis, Dale Clark, Keith Clemente, Scott Crabb, Omar Stewart, Oscar Mays, Rob Roman, Cedric Burrow, Lise Moidel, Carlene Moore, Scott Cannon, Dennis Croak, Carmen Phillips, Cedric Burrow, Joan Braithwaite, Anna Katoni Yildirim, Lisa Avinson, Carmen Phillips, Anna Weaver, Peter Taro, Ronnie Collins, Ann Backus, Sandra Stillwell, Daniel Osborne, Scott Knowlton, Richard Goldstein, LaShawn Austin, Joseph Knight and Cindy Hanley, Lloyd and Diane Leftridge, Keely Austin, Carol Pink, William Delgado, Wendy Bullock, Michael Miller, Jessica Scala, Elmer Dingsalon, David Bactera, Brenda Sayon, Peter Duncan, Michelle Miles, Leonardo Candido, Roberta Hazard, Robert Lee, Gary Howell, Melissa Lutman, Diva Zamparelli, Eric Ha, Cynthia Calhoun, and Deslin Odell. All of you folks, welcome to the line. Congratulations for joining us here on the Founders webinar. Let's continue with Charity Roberts, Matt Burke, Sherry Jones, Wade Howe, Pat Herrero, Scott O'Shaughnessy, Hira Sidhu, Gabriel Matache, Stephen Huff, Jason Lerma, Alexander Becker, Gannon Slusser, Donna Lee, Randy Navarro, Luza Deftu, Tabitha Yang, Isaac Rothstein, Candy Baker DeYoung, Vincent Estrada, Fritz Smith, Sharon Witherspoon, Alvin Moore, Estelle Gordon, Jay Abramovitz, Shantira Ellington, Dylan Hill, Derek and Paula Porter, Eric Hernandez, Phyllis Bailey, JC and Linda Williams, Paul Mahood, Delana LaBelle, and Doug Cap. All of you folks, welcome to the call. Congratulations for joining us here. I'm going to see if I can fit a few more names in. So let's start that off with Matt Cook, Brianna Carroll, Stephanie Williams, Celeste Manella, Arif Khan, John Kowalski, John Robishko, Doug and Susie Overvold, William Cooper, Kelly Tracy, Scott Bucco, Brianne Rusty, Anthony Pierre, Aaron Myrick, Chris Prieto, Jill Sonder, Ken Evans, Rodney Spaeth, and Lyle Huddleston. All of you folks, welcome to the line. Congratulations for joining us here on the Founders webinar. I first of all want to say if I ever go through your name and don't get it quite right, I'm doing the best that I can, moving as fast as I can. And for those of you that I didn't get to announce your name, well, you just got to get on here earlier because there's a whole list here and it's continuing to grow and we are out of time. So if I didn't welcome you personally, I'm welcoming you. I'm congratulating you for being with us here on the Founders webinar. And I now have the opportunity and the privilege to turn the Founders webinar over to our founder, Mr. Bob Snyder. And Bob, as I turn this call over to you, I just want to say, as I do every single week, thank you. And I say it and I mean it. Thank you so much for everything that you've built and everything you continue to do to make this opportunity better for all of us all across the nation. Thank you, Bob. And I'm going to turn the rest of this call right over to you.
Well, you're so welcome, and it goes right back out to you, man. It's nice to have you here every Monday night, Christian, and taking introductions. And it's fun to hear all the folks from all across the nation calling in and participating. We have got a wonderful Founders webinar planned for you this evening. Can't wait for us to unveil, the evening and see how it progresses because you're going to learn some stuff. So I want to get right into it. That means we've got to start with, a few weekly announcements. And this evening, we're going to be able to shorten them up a little bit. I just want you to know that Jay Massey has come into the studio and he has re-recorded and updated Real Estate Sales Success, which is a fantastic class that I know so many people love. Chris Wilson was in to do Buy and Hold Day 1 and Day 2. These classes are in editing right now. We're working on those, and they will be coming very, very soon to Helios. So stay tuned because those classes will be in your business center in Helios very, very shortly. Anyway, I also want to remind everybody we got a Renatus Corporate Intensive that's coming up. That's right, a real estate event unlike any other where we're going to live stream this to everybody across the nation who's in the Renatus community. It is 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time start. That's right, Mountain Time. So 9 a.m. Mountain Time, which would be about 11 o'clock Eastern Time, and, well, it'd be about 8 o'clock Pacific Time. That's August 4th, Saturday's the day, and Brian Sump's going to be talking about rehabbing and how to help people better understand what they should be doing and shouldn't be doing to the properties they buy. In addition to that, we've got a date change, and I want to make sure everybody knows this. You know, we've got Jason Andrus and Woody Woodward were originally scheduled to come into the studio the first part of August. Jason needed to back things up a little bit. There were a few other things that we required of him to make sure that his home inspection class is going to be everything we've been bragging it up to be. So we moved him back to Thursday, September 6th. Woody is going to do kind of a unique twist. He wants to film his class for the most part out and about in the wonderful world. He's going to be teaching about entrepreneurship, and he wants to do it in more of an engaging and interactive real-world environment. So we're going to work with him on some out-of-the-studio filming. But guess what? Mr. Ron Williams. That's right. Mr. Ron Williams, the guy who knows more about fitness and nutrition than anybody I've ever met in my entire life. 7-time Mr. Universe, 7-time Mr. Olympia, 7-time Mr. World, is coming into the studio on Friday, September 7th. He's going to spend an entire day talking about your very most valuable real estate. That is, what's in your mind, what's in your body, and how you need to take care of it so that you can peak your potential performance. And I'm excited about this class. It's going to be a wonderful one to add to all of the many that we have to offer to help people better understand not only how they can be incredible real estate investors, but how they can be fantastic entrepreneurs and business people and enjoy the fitness and health of mind and body that goes right along with it. So those are a couple really exciting things that are coming up as well. Now, we want to do a little web feature focus this week on the Money Matrix videos. I hope that individuals across the nation know what Money Matrix is all about. If you don't, I'm going to educate you, because Money Matrix, what we did is we contracted with Mr. Woody Woodward a long time ago to create for us a daily video that talked about so many great things. It's Money is the acronym, and it stands for Mindset, Opportunity, Networking, Entrepreneurship, and You. Well, on Mondays, we've got Mindset Monday, and then we had Opportunity Tuesday, and then Networking Wednesday, Entrepreneurship Thursday, and it's all about you on Friday. And this went on for a year and a half. So to date, we've got in our library, our Money Matrix library, that's a part of Helios as well as the Business Center right now while we're making the transition. But we've got about 450 of these incredible videos that were produced by none other than Mr. Woody Woodward. These videos have got some of the most powerful messages of incredible stories that you have ever heard. They're generally, anywhere from 2.5 to 5 minutes in length. They come with not only a powerful message, but a lesson that goes along with it, and then an assignment on how you can follow up and improve yourself. So if you are not acquainted with the Money Matrix videos that are in your Business Center in Helios, now's the time to do it. In Helios, it's pretty easy. All you got to do is go to the drop-down menu, go to the training tab, and you'll be able to see how that training tab is a drop-down, and at the bottom, it's Money Matrix. Click on that and choose from over 450 inspiring, educational, and informational videos. All right, moving right along. Hey, guess what, gang? I've been telling you, if you didn't get your room booked for the Renatus Leaders Retreat, you're running out of time, and now the time is out. Even though we were able to secure 15 additional rooms, they're all sold out. The hotel has nothing else. They are sold out. So unless somebody from the Renatus community, decides to cancel a room, there's no room at the inn. So we are very appreciative of those individuals who acted quickly and promptly and smart, who are going to be with us for the 2018 Renatus Leaders Retreat, because we are going to have such an incredible time down there. I can't wait to hang out with 250 to 300 of my closest friends, right? It'll be a good time. It really will. And for those of you who wanted to go but were not able to for whatever reason, well, guess what? Next year we're planning an incredible event too, and we'll look forward to having you with us, hopefully. It's one of those deals where there's only so many hotels that will fit us because of the room count that we have, in addition to all of the other rooms that that they have to provide for guests. So next year, do not delay. Get your room booked so that you don't run into a situation like this one where we're sold out. All right, let's get into the Renata's Weekly Top 10, shall we? Always love this section of our call every single week because, well, it gets to highlight and showcase those people who are dialing for dollars and changing lives. And the top 10 IMAs this week, these are the top 10 IMAs because they had the most guests online, on webinars, and in live presentations this last week. So in the number 10 position, well, that's Hopeton Dalbin. And Hopeton is 23 guests this last week. So congratulations to you, my friend. Nicely done. Then we've got number 9, Heather Young with 26 guests, tearing it up. Who's in the number 7 position? Let's find out. Hey, that's Christian Sadler with 27 guests. Congratulations, Christian. Love to see your name there. Antonio Lobo grabbed the number 7 spot with 28 guests. And then Ferry Ajaya and Grace Maria with 28 guests are in the number 6 position. Well, who's breaking into the top 5? That's William and Amanda Robinson with 29. Then you got number 4 position, Brian and Wendy Bullock down in LA with 32 guests. Man, I love to see their name up there. They're tearing it up. And then Jose Rodriguez, he's moving up the line here. Number 3 this week with 33 guests. Jim Holmes and Debbie Worthington didn't want to be outdone. They got 35 guests. That put them in the number 2 position. And number 1 this week, and this is really week in and week out anymore, Mr. Martin Borg. Boy, he's developed an incredible system for putting people through the system. 126 guests online and in live presentations this last week. Nicely done, Martin. All right, let's talk about the top 10 event hosts, shall we? Top 10 event hosts. Starting the number 10 position, well, we have none other than, and where is my animation? Hang on here. There we go, Antonio Lobo. Antonio Lobo out of Davie, Florida. Excited to see you in the top 10. And then we've got none other than Mr. Chris McIntosh in Spokane, Washington, which is always exciting. Look at that. I misspelled Spokane. Well, forgive me, Chris. I was in a rush. And then we've got Loretta and Perrin Wetzel in the number 8 position here, Chicago, Illinois. Congratulations to you. Christian Sadler and Mitch Nelson didn't want to be undone. They're in the number 7 spot with Sandy, Utah, making a big splash there. Dr. Gary and Sylvia Lawrence, Scottsdale, Arizona, number 6 this week. Breaking into the top 5, that's none other than Mr. Kendall Stock out of Murrieta, California, and his team. And then Brian and Wendy Bullock in the number 4 position, Los Angeles. Who's number 3? Michael and Vanessa Huggins. You know, Michael keeps telling me great things about that Denver crowd, and now the numbers are starting to catch up with the story, so I'm really excited for you guys there. Number 2, Jim Holmes and Debbie Worthington out in Sewanee, Georgia, or Atlanta for the rest of us. That's pretty much where the meetings have taken place in the Atlanta greater area, and they have really locked down a powerful position in the top 10 every single week. Who's number 1? Guess what, man? That's Scott and Nancy Rowe, Mr. Bob Tierney out of Chicago, Illinois. It seems like that's almost a given every single week. So we're thrilled and excited to see our top 10 event hosts, our top 10 IMAs, which brings us right on over to our featured story of the week. Man, you know, facts tell, stories sell, and stories are the most powerful commodity that we have because it drives people to a level of inspiration and motivation that many times, you know, we can't do with facts and figures because people buy on emotion. They might justify with logic, but they'll definitely buy on emotion. That's how we enroll them in Renatus. And my take has always been, if we don't enroll them, we can't serve them. So the story you're going to hear this evening is about a couple that are doing amazing things with Renatus. They're saving money, they're making money, they're changing lives. That's none other than Kip and Laura Brown out of the Seattle, Washington area. And Kip and Laura, thanks so much for being our featured story this evening. Come on out here and share your story with the nation so they can get better acquainted with you.
Well, thanks a lot, Bob. We appreciate you asking us and Scott asking us to be able to come on tonight. Just wanted to say that, you know, Renatus inspired us, but it was really meeting you and seeing your vision for the company that really, truly told us that we had found the right place. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
You know, also thanks Scott and Nancy Rowe. I mean, without them, we wouldn't be here. And of course, Mark and Carla Sizemore, and really, you know, the entire Seattle crew. This is just an incredible community up here. We just fell in love with everybody, fell in love with the process, fell in love with the company and community. And you really created something special here. So that really set the tone for why we made the decision and really what keeps us here and keeps us going.
So we're going to get started with just telling you a little bit about us and where we came from and why we got started with all of this. Both of us are from Montana originally. We were born and raised there. We both came from working class families. I was from a farm and ranch family. Kip's had a teacher for a mother and a father that did contract negotiations for companies. And we really had a strong background in just figuring out how to get it done and how to do it as efficiently as we potentially could have. And so with that, as we went through college and started on the path down the plan of getting good grades and, you know, getting a job and going to school and all of those types of things, we got out of school, we got that good job, at least Kip did. I followed him, we got married right out of college, and we moved to San Francisco to get that good job with a big company, big corporate America, and we thought we were set, we were excited, and to do all of that.
You know, we kind of had stars in our eyes. I remember that, you know, well over 20 years ago now, thinking that my path had been set. I got that job that I was the dream job, really. You know, when you look at all the people at the University of Montana that came to recruit, there was maybe 2 companies total, and one of them offered me what I thought was a great job, and I moved down to San Francisco and realized very quickly that, yeah, that was good money in Montana, not so much in San Francisco. There goes the debt cycle.
And so basically we started off our married life going through that process, and I always was a supporting person with all of that, finding the jobs to fill in. We both were working, and we moved around. We moved from San Francisco up to the Seattle area, and in doing all of that, we found a way, actually, to do velocity banking from the bottom up without realizing that maybe we had done that before. And in doing that, we were able to pay off a lot of our debt, that, you know, initially paying off the cars, paying off our credit cards, making ourselves virtually debt free at that point in time, except for that big thing up there that is a mortgage. And we were really looking for that. But along the way, with Kip's big job, and he was starting to travel internationally quite a bit. He was traveling a lot throughout the United States. And in doing that, I had to stop my business of photography that I had started to be able to stay home with my kids, because somebody had to be a parent and be able to be with them all the time. And I got to the point through that whole cycle of introducing myself as a married single mother of 3, because we rarely saw him. And when we did see him, he was on the travel cycle and he was wrecked most of the time.
Yeah, it took me at least 3-4 days to recover, both coming and going from the trip. So my 4 days at home in between travel just wasn't working.
So with that, you know, I dedicated myself to taking care of our family and taking care of stuff within the family, managing our household, managing everything, so Kip could focus on work and really go the potential, if you will, to make that money and do for the family what we needed to have done. Now, that eventually led me to want to do something besides laundry and dishes and house cleaning, and the few other things. Yard work was another big one. And in doing that, I started looking for myself. My kids were getting into school. I wanted to go back to work, and I decided that grocery store bagging and checking, I just had more to give to life than that. And so I went looking, and I loved real estate. I wanted to find something in regards to that. I looked at every avenue. I looked at architecture school. I looked at going and getting my real estate license. And then I saw a little roadside sign along the way that said, you know, real estate investor seeks trainee. And I was like, heck, I can start at the bottom. That's okay.
Now, who in the world answers those signs? I still don't understand that. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, anyway, we had lots of discussions about that. And I was convinced after seeing the webinars ultimately, and that this was going to be a path that I thought would work perfectly for the list of criteria that I had to be able to go back to work, that nothing else had been able to solve at that point. And in doing that, I found my first local event that I went to was actually an intensive on velocity banking. And when I saw this, I literally knew right then and there, watching Richie Pancoast actually give that seminar at that time, or that intensive, I knew that I had found that one thing that we had been looking for our entire married life at this point, and how to pay off that mortgage. And I was so excited to take it home to Kip, and I came running home to tell him all about this. And what did he say?
I think you drank some Kool-Aid. I do not believe that you have any idea what you're doing. It cannot possibly work. In fact, I think I used some harsher words than that, but I need to keep this PC for Bob. But long story short, I just didn't get it. I had a background I have a minor in statistics in college, and I'm a computer science developer. I did software development for a very long time, and it just didn't seem like it could work. It was too good to be true. If the story was this good, I clearly would have heard it. So we had we'll call it a discussion or two about this.
Yeah, and with all of that, I was convinced. I knew it. I had run the numbers in our head for our own situation because I handled all the finances for the family at that point, and I had run the numbers. I could see how this would work entirely, and in doing that, I didn't care what he said, actually. I was like, this is for us. Not only am I going to get the real estate education that I want, but this alone, this strategy will save us more money than the cost of this education. And I knew it from the get-go. I had to do my first sale with my husband, and I would like to give some credit to myself on that particular one, that I did finally convince him that this was the right path to go down, and he got on board.
Yeah, okay, I got it, honey. We need to I'll show up, I'll support you, but this is your deal. I believe I said that.
Yep, he did say that, and I was like, that's fine. I'm good with that. It can be my deal. I will show you what we can do, and hopefully you will get on board with this.
So that she did. She finally convinced me to come down and look at this, and I went to one meeting, and I'm that guy that, I watched the webinars. I still didn't quite believe it, so I went down to one of the intro meetings, and I kind of sat in the front row, arms crossed, and said, I just can't wait. I'm going to show you. I knew there was a moment coming. There was that moment of clarity that was going to come where I could point to and say, see, I told you so. And unfortunately, I kind of had to do something a lot different. I kind of had to say, wow, you were right, honey.
Awesome. It doesn't happen very often. I'll take that.
So why don't you show them, honey, what we did with this? So just give them an idea on that.
So we immediately, we got started with Renatus, in November of 2016. And I'm not kidding you, immediately within the first day or two, I started watching the classes, but I knew I was going to get this ball rolling. I went down to my bank and started the conversation about getting a home equity line of credit. And I'm going to let Kip tell you the numbers, because he's my numbers guy and he's really good at it.
Yeah, so before the strategy, in December 2015, a year before Renatus, we had refinanced our house because we really didn't know any better. The things you should have known, huh? And we got that home equity line of credit. We did the refinance, got it all out there, watched the webinars, November 2016, bought into Renatus, and then December of 2016, so exactly 1 year into our 30-year mortgage, 29 years left, we decided to implement it. In doing that, we figured out that we can come up with about 20 grand in cash flow every year, which is fantastic. So we started implementing that with Velocity Banking. We've already saved over $106,000. Yes, that's $106,000 in there.
And that's to date.
That's to date already. We're on track to save over $202,000. So if anybody believes this can't work or thinks it's too good to be true, I'm telling you, this is unbelievable. Everybody should know this. You want to pay off debt, this is the way to do it. We're going to pay off that 30-year mortgage in 9 years and 11 months from the original start date in 2015, which is 7.5 years from today. We'll save over $202,000. It's been just amazing. And what I like to show out people in this one is you think of an investment strategy that's out there today, any investment strategy in the country. In less than 8 years from now, buying the X combo, so go all in because you go big or go home. It's the only thing that makes sense. You get that X combo, 20 grand. I'm saving $202,000 with this. That means Laura and I have created a 1,014% return on this investment. So I challenge everybody, show me any strategy on the planet where I can get a 1,000% return that I get to control 100% of the time. guaranteed. That's pretty amazing. So that's just, we tell everybody that's what we do when you keep your existing expense profile, you keep your exact income. But let's, Laura, talk about a little bit of what we've done with our lifestyle and what happened when we added in the information and education that Renatus has given us, because it's pretty incredible.
So basically, we got started with that, with our numbers for us before we got all the marketing and the real estate really going full steam. And then we started with all of our numbers as far as our real estate fix and flips and things like that. And with that added income coming in, or cash flow coming into our Velocity banking system, we actually were able to not only show you the numbers that we did earlier, but we were able to pay off our $41,000 car 3 years early. We were able to pay off our rental properties. We were able to, of course, pay off our ex-combo education. But even that, and some of the you may know within the community, is that on April 2nd of this year, right during nationals, I found out that I had a brain tumor the size of a navel orange in my right frontal lobe. And it was a shock. We actually went through nationals with that, and with that knowledge, knowing that when we got home, we had 11 days before I went under a 9.5-hour surgery to have it removed. And who knows what would happen. It was a scary time. But we had the implementation in place with Velocity Banking to absorb that cost and be able to pay for that surgery outright. We had to pay $10,000 basically out of pocket to get that rolling in 11 days after we found out. And we were able to do that in addition to all those other things that I said. And we are still rolling, and we are still able to make money and have our dreams and goals to realize here within the next 8 years or 7 years. And we will actually realize at the end of that time period about a $209,000 savings with our current calculations. So it really is a truly amazing strategy, and we think everybody should implement it. And we are so glad that we did.
Yeah, we're just thankful for Renatus. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been incredible. That's our story. It's just been a great ride, and looking forward to the rest of this year and beyond. Stars are set for us.
My goodness, man, what an amazing story. You guys are doing such great things. And this is what Renatus is all about. I mean, your story is indicative of so many individuals across the country who are seeing their life change. So when we talk about a life-changing experience, I think you just unveiled what that could look like. So thank you so much for being our featured story tonight on the Founders Webinar.
Oh, you are very welcome, Bob.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Bob.
And I'll look forward to seeing you in Cancun.
Oh, we're there. We're already there.
Right on. Well, it's time for us to transition over to our featured training of the week. And I'll tell you what, this is a featured training you guys are going to absolutely love, because it goes right along with what Kip and Laura just shared with us. And that is the incredible strategy we know as Velocity Banking. You know, there's an individual in the company that is near and dear to my heart, and that's Mr. Randall Cloud. Now, it's not only because he's such a brilliant budding entrepreneur and such a great intellect with logic and reason, but it's also because he's my son-in-law, and I've known him since he was 16, and I am so proud of this guy for the great things that he's doing. He is a Renatus instructor. He's also our director of finance, and I asked him to come out here this evening and to share with everybody how he has, well, been able to share this incredible Velocity Banking strategy with so many. So he's going to teach you, he's going to train you, he's going to share some of his own success and experience with it and help you understand how you can make things happen too. So Randall, come on out here, my friend, and I'll push the presenter controls over your way.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Wow, I don't know how I'm supposed to follow Kip and Laura's story there. That's pretty powerful stuff. You know, it's really stories like that that have made me so passionate about teaching Velocity Banking like I do. Let me go ahead and get my screen sharing set up here. Okay. Should be good. Okay. So, Velocity Banking. Yeah, so like I was saying, it's really stories like Kip and Laura's that make me so passionate about velocity banking. And honestly, listening to you guys really made me miss being up in Washington with the whole crew up there. Hopefully one day I'll get to come back. Okay, so when Bob and Jay asked me to they invited me to come out and share a little bit about velocity banking, and I was kind of brainstorming with them what we would do. They were telling me about the call, who was going to be going on before me, and they let me know that Kip is actually an engineer, and spent a lot of time running over the numbers for velocity banking to try and figure out why it didn't work. And that reminded me of some comic I had seen once upon a time, so I just kind of thought I'd share that with everyone while we get started here. You know, there's an idea that understanding numbers can help with some of these other ways to use numbers, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so we're going to go over what we're going to do tonight. We are going to get started with talking about traditional banking, the model that we were all taught growing up, or hopefully taught growing up if we were taught anything about finances, and why that works, why it doesn't work, and then we're going to talk about a much better banking model, and that's velocity banking, which is what we're all here for, right? After that, I'm going to give you guys some really quick steps to get started with velocity banking in your life. You know, this is a 6-8 hour training that we're trying to condense down into 40 minutes. So it's just going to be some quick steps, just what you need to know. And then we're going to talk about marketing with velocity banking. Why is velocity banking such a good marketing tool, and how can we use it as we're marketing? And then I'll tell you a little bit about my velocity banking story. And when all is said and done, we'll come back to this page and just count how many times I can say velocity banking in one page. Okay, so let's talk about the traditional banking model. If you were taught anything about finances, you were most likely taught how to be a responsible adult when it came to finances. And before you guys get any funny ideas, I just want to point out that this is an ing. It is not adultering. As far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as responsible adultering. It just doesn't make sense. It's adulting, okay? This is how you adult with your finances. One, you were probably told to save money, right? I think that's a pretty big thing that we're all told at some point in some way or another. For some of us, that's putting a certain amount into our savings account every single time we get money. Maybe it's a percentage or a dollar amount. For some of us, as we get older, it becomes more the things like 401ks and IRAs is how you're supposed to save your money. Put it in the stock market or in other kinds of investment markets. Two, you're supposed to pay off your mortgage faster, or just stay debt-free or get debt-free. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that this is phrased. You listen to people like Dave Ramsey, and they have all kinds of different strategies, and all of them work in one way or another. But there's just so many different ways out there, and personally, I don't think any of them are quite as powerful as what I'm about to show you here today. You may have heard things like, you know, only get a 15-year mortgage because then you'll be out of debt 15 years faster. Makes sense to me, right? Okay, then number 3, you're supposed to invest with your money. So you're supposed to take all the money that you get in a month, you pay for all the bills, all the things that you need to pay for in your life, your food, your travel, your clothing, your apps, your games on your phone, whatever it is that you need to pay for. And then at the end of the month, whatever money you have left over, you're supposed to take that money and divide it into these 3 things. You're supposed to take some of that money and you stick it over into saving money, take some of it and pay off some debt, and take some of it and you invest it, right? Well, that model just doesn't work, and I'm going to show you why. We're going to run through 2 quick scenarios, 2 hypothetical situations, some thought experiments, if you will, and show you why this model doesn't work for most Americans. The first scenario is that you're a savings master. You were told that you were supposed to do those 3 things, but you realized at a very young age that you couldn't do all of them very well at the same time. So you decided to focus on one. You decide to save your money. Every single month, at the end of the month, all the extra money you have left over, you put it in a savings account, never to touch it again. You live off of what you make each month, and the rest goes into savings. And you think you're doing pretty good. And you do start to save a lot of money. Over the course of 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you end up saving several $1 million in your bank account. Good for you. But then you look back at your life when you're finally done, 45, 50 years later, paying off that 30-year mortgage, and you realize, hey, if I had taken this money 15, 20 years ago, I could have paid off my mortgage so much earlier and been completely debt-free for all of this time and saved myself hundreds of thousands of dollars of interest. And you realize it's all too late that you were not financially responsible to have saved all of your money. Just saving alone is not complete financial responsibility. So knowing that, you rewind time, you go all the way back to when you first made that decision, and you decide you're going to go a different route. You decide that you are going to get rid of all of your debt and stay debt-free at all times. So every month, every last dollar that you have left over, you put into your loans. You put into your mortgage, into your car loan, and do you start paying off your debts a lot faster? You bet it. All of a sudden, your debt's dropping down, you're saving interest left and right, you're feeling pretty good about yourself, and it's going great for the first year and for the second year. And then on year 3, you lose your job. You have no money coming in. How long can you go with no job before they repossess your house and your car and the shoes that you took out a loan on because the shoes cost $1,500? Not very long at all. They come knocking pretty quickly if you have no savings account. So you realize you can't pay off your debt and only do that because that's not financially responsible either. So here you are stuck. What are you supposed to do? Because see, here's what happens for the average American. You take that money, and at the end of the month, you have $150 left over. And you're supposed to split that money amongst these 3 things. So you say, hey, I'm going to stick $50 into my savings, and I'm going to stick $50 into my mortgage, and I'm going to stick $50 into my stock market account. Well, does any of that really seem worth it? If you put $50 into your savings account, is that helping you next month if you lose your job? You're going to be like, man, I'm sure glad I have that extra $50 to tide me over. It's not going to last you very long, is it? And $50 in an investment account, what can you even buy for $50 in the stock market? I mean, maybe at the end of 10 years, your $50 could have turned into 100 if you're really lucky. Not super helpful, not very motivating. And same thing goes for paying off your mortgage. Is $50 really going to get you that much further along, that much faster? So what does the average American do? It's a psychological thing. None of it feels worth it, so you end up doing nothing. You take that $50 and you go buy that new iPhone. You're like, yay, toys. And it's a lot more rewarding to do that than it is to put your money in all of these things. And even if you do split your money in all of these things, you don't do any of them very well. And like we already saw in the previous analogies, if you try and focus on one of them, you run the risk of having needed to focus on the other ones. So that's the problem that we're in with traditional banking. And that's where velocity banking comes in. The whole point of velocity banking is to allow you to take this extra money you have at the end of the month, not stick it in the iPhone, at least not yet, and put $150 into your savings account, and simultaneously put $150 into your mortgage, and simultaneously be able to use $150 to invest in. It allows you to do all 3 things with the same amount of money. And that may seem like witchcraft, and it might be. You can ask Jay Stark. Earlier today, I was in his office running over some problems I was having with the math behind all of this. And trust me, I go over the math on a regular basis on this, and it still drives me crazy sometimes trying to figure out exactly what's going on the finer details of things. So what is it? What is velocity banking? How does it make it so we can do all 3 of those things with the same amount of money? Velocity banking is transferring debt from loans to lines of credit. Then once your debt is in the form of line of credit, you pay down that line of credit. Then when you pay it down, you transfer debt from loans to lines of credit. And then you pay down that line of credit. And then you transfer debt you get the picture. That's the basis of velocity banking. We're going to talk very quickly about how it works at a high level and see if we can't make it make a little bit of sense for you. So why? Why are we moving our debt from these loans to these lines of credit? Well, when you look at the difference between fixed loans and lines here, there's a lot of things that stand out. I mean, the interest is calculated differently. Your minimum payment each month is calculated differently. You know, in a fixed loan, you pay the exact same amount every single month, month over month. That's the whole point of a fixed loan. Whereas a line of credit, it changes. It's based on the interest rate, or maybe there's a certain percentage of principal you have to pay back every month, but it changes. There's no such thing as PMI with a line of credit, whereas there could be if you have like a mortgage where you didn't put more than 20% down. Loans, they pay your escrows for you, but lines of credit don't, so you have to pay your taxes, you know, every November. You know, there's a lot of things that are different about lines and loans, but there's really one thing that stands out that sets these two apart. The whole reason we want to use line of credit instead of loans is because lines of credit are a two-way street. It's because when a loan, when you make that mortgage payment, all of that money that you made disappears. Whereas in a line of credit, whatever portion went to principal, you get to reuse again. You could turn around and spend it if you wanted to that same day. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. By doing that, we're allowing you to maximize your cash flow. You're finding various different forms of cash flow, and you're focusing that cash flow onto one debt at a time. You're taking all of the cash flow you can muster. We're going to talk in just a second about how you find all this extra cash flow. And then you focus it on one debt until that debt's gone, which creates more cash flow. And then you take that extra cash flow and focus it on a new debt. It's kind of a repeating cycle. So where are you finding your new sources of cash flow? Well, one, the leftovers. And what I mean by that is every night when you eat dinner, you can take your family's leftovers and go down to like a homeless shelter and try and sell it off. Or not. No, this is the type of leftovers where at the end of the month, that little extra money that you have that you don't know what to do with, so you invariably end up spending it and then, you know, regretting it the next day when you realize you still hadn't paid your gas bill and now you have no money in your checking account. We're talking about taking that and just leaving it alone because it actually means something. It's more motivating to leave it where it is. And we'll talk about why in a second. Two, unnecessary expenses. You know, one of the things that we love about Velocity Banking is it doesn't require you to cut back on your current lifestyle. But cutting back on your current lifestyle could help, or especially if there's places where you're spending money that you don't need to be, that it's not even benefiting you. You just have the subscription going that's spending, you know, $30 a month that you haven't even looked at for 12 years. Things like that, you could find those, recoup that cash flow and bring it back into your Velocity Banking system. Three, your savings account. If you're actively putting money into your savings account each month, you no longer need to do that with Velocity Banking. And I'll show you why in just a second. But by recouping that savings account, that money that you're putting into your savings account, you gain cash flow back into your Velocity Banking system to throw at a single debt. You can also eliminate required monthly payments. So every single time you pay off a debt, you no longer have to pay that bill each month. You no longer have to pay for that. And so all of that money comes back in the form of cash flow. And then five, you get to recoup cash flow from existing loan payments. Even loan payments that you're still making before they're completely eliminated, you can recoup cash flow. And here's what I mean by that. If you look at a $400,000 mortgage at 4.5%, you'd have a payment of $2,026.74. That'd be your principal and interest payment. But only $1,500 of that is interest. The other $526.74 on your first month would be for principal. And that much money could come back in the form of your cash flow. You'd get this back. It's money that you could turn around and spend again if you needed to. You know, when you look at a mortgage payment, you think, hey, my mortgage is only 4.5%. And that's true, but 100% of your payment disappears each month. Every time you make that payment, you don't get it back. Sure, it's there in the form of equity in your house, but that doesn't mean anything until you sell your house 30 or 40 years down the road. And what do most Americans do? You either refinance and lose out on some of that equity, or you sell your house and roll that equity into a new house, but you never actually get it back in a meaningful way to be able to pay down debt. This allows us to get that cash flow back now and use it to pay down debts. So let's talk about the quick steps. What do you need to do to start Velocity Banking in your life today? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to pick a line of credit. It may be a line of credit you already have. Any credit card, personal line of credit, maybe you have a home equity line of credit. You may have unsecured personal lines of credit, secured personal lines of credit. I mean, there is everything, but you have to pick one of those. And if you don't already have one that works, then you may have to apply for a new one if you have the available credit worthiness to do so. So what are you looking for when you pick a line of credit? You're looking for something with a relatively high credit limit on it. So something, you know, more than a $500 overdraft account, although if that's all you have, you can start with that. But you're looking for which of your lines of credit have the highest limit, preferably something with a lower interest rate. Not that it really matters too much, but hey, every penny helps. And you're looking for something that's easy to use. Maybe a line of credit that is held at the financial institution that you bank with anyway. So you can transfer money between your checking account and your line of credit really easily, or between your other loans and your lines of credit and your checking account, your savings account, like everything's easier to move. Or maybe it's just one that has a really good app that works with it. Or maybe it's one where the fees associated with it allow you to do things like balance transfers without doing any fees. Or one that doesn't charge you a cash advance fee when you try and use the credit card to pay for a mortgage. You know, finding one that's easier to use. You may not be able to find the perfect one, but this is kind of what you're aiming for. Next up, you're going to transfer debt. You're going to take debt from a loan, preferably your smallest loan. People always ask me as I travel around the country, how do you organize which loans we need to pay off first? Honestly, the easiest way is just start with your smallest, because as soon as you can pay that off, you can recoup its payment back into cash flow and get accelerated on your next loan. So I kind of sort people's loans from smallest to largest, and I start paying off the smallest one first. So you're going to identify your smallest balance loan, the one that you owe the least amount of money on right now, and transfer that debt from the loan to your line of credit, whatever line of credit it is you picked in the previous step. And then you're going to take all of your income, goes directly into this. Someone told me kind of an anecdotal story earlier today about an individual who was taking their education. They learned about velocity banking and then came back a year later and were kind of complaining, saying, hey, it doesn't work. Because what they had done is they had transferred all of their debt over to a line of credit, and then they were trying to make that line of credit payment separately. They were not funneling any income into this line of credit. They were just making that payment as if it was an extra bill they had each month. And we're like, yeah, no wonder that didn't work for you. So you're funneling all of your money into this line of credit. And just by virtue of your paycheck going into the line of credit, you've made your payment. You don't have to worry about that payment anymore. Say that you had, $10,000 sitting on a credit card, and you choose this as your Velocity banking account. Each month, actually before I repeat that part, this credit card has a minimum payment of $100 a month that you have to pay on it. Every month you drop your income of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 into this account, and that may come $2,500 on the first of the month and $2,500 on the 15th of the month. And just by virtue of that money going in, you've made your payment. You don't have to make that $100 payment anymore. You don't have to budget that $100 payment. That's part of recouping the cash flow in your existing loan payments. So you funnel all of your money into this one account. And then you just do it over and over again. As soon as that line of credit is paid off, you transfer more debt to it from a fixed loan. If it's the same fixed loan you were already working on, great. If that one's paid off, then you get to start on a new one. Sometimes your line of credit is significantly larger than many of your smaller loans. I was in Southern Florida on Saturday teaching Velocity banking. Hello to the South Florida team. And while I was there was an individual who had a scenario where they had a lot of lines of credit. They had something like 8 or 9 lines of credit that they were trying to get paid off. Well, once we picked one of them as their Velocity banking account, that one Velocity banking account was able to pay off 5 of the other lines of credit in one fell swoop. And then all they had to do is pay off this one. So they went from having 6 minimum payments of $25, $50, $75 a piece to having one credit card with a minimum payment of $50 that they then had to funnel all their money into. And I asked her, does it stress you out to have to manage all of these different payments? And she was like, yeah, that's why I'm here. I need to get rid of all of this. So even just for stress alone, simplifying 5, 6 payments into one can make a huge difference. And it also made a huge difference in how fast she was able to pay all of these off. At the time, she was making minimum payments on all of them and said, you know, she'd be paying them pretty much forever when we did the math on it. But she was able to get completely debt-free in, I'm kind of forgetting the number, was it 2.4, 4.2 years? One of those two. I think it was 2.4 years. So that's the quick steps on how you do velocity banking. So coming back to a few things that I kind of skipped over while we were talking, I said I would come back and show you why you don't need to put money in your savings account anymore. The whole point of what we're doing is that you want to be able to dump all of your money into your loan, right? You want to take all your excess money you have in a month and pay off your debt. But there's a few reasons we can't do that. There's a few reasons the normal American can't and probably shouldn't try that. One, it makes it so that, I mean, if they do their math wrong, they can't pay their bills anymore. If you put too much money into your mortgage and then you forget that you had your gas bill due still and you have nothing left in your checking account, now you have a late payment where you have to wait until you get another paycheck to be able to make that gas payment. So just for a practicalities purpose, you can't do that. It's just really hard to pull that off. And two, you have no savings account. So what happens if you lose your job? Just like in that second scenario that we were talking about earlier, if they lose their job, they need something to fall back on, some emergency. And we hope that it never happens. And for many people, it never does. So many people treat their savings account as so sacred that they're waiting for that next big thing to happen before they'll touch it. And that big thing never comes. These little big things come, but they're able to deal with each one. You know, they use their insurance, or, oh no, a tree fell on our car. Well, maybe I'll sell that exercise equipment downstairs in the basement that we haven't touched in 5 years. Get a little extra cash and pay for that. They find a way to deal with those small, big things as they come up, and they never end up using their savings account. And we hope that this allows them to. You know, Laura was talking about her tumor and how that was a pretty big thing. That's the type of thing that people are saving up for, right? Having a tumor and having to drop $10,000 immediately to get in there and treat it as fast as possible to prevent it from growing even more could be a big deal for a lot of people. But having Velocity Banking, they had that savings account. They didn't need to have a cash-based savings account sitting in a bank that they had these piles of money that they could go grab and throw at the scary tumor until it went away. They were able to fall back on their lines of credit that they had through Velocity Banking that had plenty of available limit to access their savings account and get them out of a tough situation. So because of that, for many people doing Velocity Banking, adding additional money to your savings account becomes a non-issue. You no longer need to do that. I'm not saying that no one should do that. It's kind of up to each individual person. And you know, each person will have their own reasons why they do or do not. But for many people, it won't be necessary anymore when you're doing Velocity Banking to its full extent, like Laura and Kip were. So that's one thing that you don't want to have to worry about anymore. And that helps gain some cash flow back. I talk to lots of people who we get, you know, into their numbers. We'll have been talking for an hour, trying to figure out the best scenario for them. And as I'm trying to run their numbers, it accidentally comes up that they're still putting $300 or $400 or $500, maybe even $1,000 away each month into a savings account. And I'm like, oh, well, do you mind if I ask how much is in that savings account and why you're still doing that? And we kind of talk about it and we weigh out the pros and cons of not doing that. And oftentimes we're able to help them pay off their debt in half the time as what we were currently scheduling, even with Advanced Velocity Banking. Okay, so moving back on, those were the quick steps. And now we're going to talk just a little bit about marketing. Now, I know some people in the community who are a lot better to tell you exactly how to use Velocity Banking as a marketing tool. I'm here to tell you why Velocity Banking is such a powerful tool and how it should be at least part of any marketer's repertoire of tools. One of the best things that I loved about Velocity Banking, and one of the first reasons that I started teaching, when we first got this strategy, I asked Bob if it was okay if I teach this to people as kind of a marketing tool. And he said yes, and the reason that he agreed to do so, and the reason that I wanted to, is because this one class demonstrates the immense power of the education, of just being educated in general. This one class can save hundreds of thousands of dollars for people. Laura and Kip were talking about how it will save them $202,000 by the time they pay off their debt. And we're not even talking about how it's allowed them to use their velocity banking tools as tools to make other investments and make more money. We're just talking about simple interest saved off of that first mortgage or loan or whatever it is they're trying to pay off. So it demonstrates the power of the education. It shows how quickly you can recoup the investment into yourself through the Renatus education. $20,000 becomes not that big of a deal to most people using velocity banking. 2, it's a simple enough concept for anyone to understand. There's a lot of ways that it's taught, and there's a lot of parts of it that can be confusing. Like I said earlier, it's even confusing for me sometimes. I mean, I understand the math inside and out, but sometimes there's some funny results I get when I run a person situation that really make me, have to stop and go back to the numbers and run a whole bunch of math to try and figure out why that is happening in that situation. But at its root, it's simple enough for anyone to understand how to do. You take a line of credit, you transfer debt from your loan to your line of credit, and then you put all your money into your line of credit till it's paid off, then do it again. It's pretty easy steps. And 3, everybody needs it. This is one of those things that everywhere I go in the country, people are telling me, why don't they teach this in high school? Every time I have a new guest in a room when I teach velocity banking, they come up to me afterwards and they're just dumbstruck. They're like, why is this not something that is being taught everywhere? And I don't really have a good answer for them. It should be taught in high school. Everybody needs this. Everybody has debt, or if they don't, they have had or will have debt, or they know somebody that has debt. Everybody could use this. And one of the cool things about velocity banking when you start getting into advanced velocity banking is you don't currently need debt to make it work. You can perfectly go out and get more debt in the form of good assets and use velocity banking on those. And then 4, on top of demonstrating the power and being something that they need anyway, it provides a method for people to pay for the education. This is one of those things where people can end up becoming their own bank. They can self-fund their education through the power of velocity banking. They can go out there and get a loan or a line of credit and know that they can pay it down in just a few months using our methodologies that we teach in the class. So it's just such a powerful tool, and it's one of the reasons that I love what I get to do. I'm extremely grateful that Bob has allowed me the opportunity to be a part of the velocity banking class, to be able to go out there and teach it all over the country. And I, extremely grateful to all of the people who have me come out to their markets. One of my favorite parts of doing this is getting out there and meeting the people. But this is just such a powerful tool. I think everyone needs it. So I want to tell you guys just a little bit to kind of finish up about me and my velocity banking story. I'm not going to go as deep in as Kip and Laura did with their story. Their story is just amazing. I just want to tell you how I got started with velocity banking. When velocity banking was first introduced to Renatus, a few of us on the internal staff had the opportunity to vet it, to watch the presentation from the instructor at the time and see if it was something that we thought would be useful to our community, if it was something that was truthful and honest. At Renatus, one of the things that I love about working at Renatus and being a part of the entire Renatus family is the integrity that's built into everything we do. We don't want to teach a class that's fancy and has a whole bunch of lights, but doesn't actually do anything. We want something that works. It's something that is tested and proven. And no matter how many times people try and tear it down, they just can't. The math just backs it up every single time. And so we had the opportunity to watch the presentations and then, put on our critical lenses and see if we could find any problems with it. And when I watched the education, I was very impressed and a little skeptical. Overall, I kind of trusted that it worked, but I couldn't make sense of why or how it worked. So I spent weeks building Excel spreadsheets and calculators, running the scenarios of me and my family and trying to figure out, does this work? Would this work in our life if we started doing it? Is this something that we're really ready to pull the plug on and go out and apply for a home equity line of credit and replace our entire mortgage with a home equity line of credit? And I very quickly, throughout those 2 weeks that I was doing that, found the answer to be, yes, it works. And then after that, the rest of the 2 weeks was spent just testing different scenarios against each other. I quickly found out that I could pay off the house that my family was living in at the time in, I think it was about 7 years. Or I could pay off that house and enough other houses to have enough passive cash flow coming in that it would completely replace my salary at my job. And that it would be enough that if everything was paid off, that we could very comfortably live on that. Sure, I could use a lot more than that too, but that was the bare minimum of what I needed to be able to say that I did not need to work at all anymore. So I could pay off my house and just my house alone in 7 years, or I found that I could pay off all those other houses and enough passive cash flow coming in 8.5 years. And I was like, oh, another 1.5 years to pay off an extra 5, 6 houses, whatever it was that we were considering at the time. Well, that's pretty cool. And that's when I really kind of fell in love with the strategy. And I looked forward to what that could mean for me. I mean, that means that if I wanted to, I could be retired in 8 years, 8.5 years, 9 years, 10 years if it takes a little bit longer than what, I'm thinking. And at the time I want to say 24 or 25 or something. So I was looking ahead thinking, man, before I'm 35, I could potentially be retired. Or looking at my kids, my oldest daughter was 1 year old. And I was thinking, by the time she's 10, by the time my first child is 10, I could potentially be retired and being home with my family every single day and doing whatever it is that we wanted to do. We could travel, we could work how we wanted to, we could, be philanthropists. It doesn't matter. We could do whatever we wanted. And that really started to strike me because I thought about how that could have changed my childhood. What if my parents had been completely financially free by the time I was 10 years old, or even by the time my oldest sibling was 10 years old, so heck, by the time I was 6 years old. And that's when it really struck me. And I was like, hey, if I'm going to be retired in 10 years, I'm going to be super bored if we're retired and all of our friends and family are still working 9-to-5 jobs. So I started teaching this to my friends and family, kind of not really asking. I kind of forced it down a lot of their throats at first. And I was like, you will learn velocity banking with me. And fortunately, we had a really good group of friends surrounding us, and they were all more than happy to learn it and, start implementing it in their lives. And one thing led to another, and I just started, teaching it more and more, and I got asked to come teach it for some PAC members here locally, and eventually it led to me being an instructor. And that's kind of how I got started in velocity banking, because I just believe in what it is and what it does and how powerful it is for every single person who uses it. So that's really all I have for this short little introduction to velocity banking. I hope it helps somebody out there understand just a little bit more about how to use it in their life and get started with it, and maybe let you guys know just a little bit more why you should be out there sharing it with even more people every single day. I want to thank Bob for giving me the opportunity to come out here. Kip and Laura, for your story. Honestly, it's what you guys talked about that motivates me to do what I do every single day. So thank you guys and have a great night.
I'll tell you what, Randall, nice job. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, it was a fantastic night, and you were a massive contributor to the success of this evening. I hope everybody was home listening intently and taking some good notes, because what you just shared with them could, it could be a huge game changer for a lot of folks out there. Individuals and the way they handle their money can either make their family thrive, or they can make their family dive. And I really appreciate you being our featured trainer this evening. You did a fantastic job. And we're going to make sure that this recording makes it its way to Helios and the Business Center in the next couple of days. So utilize it, learn from it, share it, and let's get the word out as to how Renatus rocks and is changing lives. Thanks, Randall. To everybody else, good night and God bless.